To M.M. Dostoyevsky, Omsk, February 22nd, 1854. At last the moment seems to have come when I can speak with you at some length and a bit more reliably. But before I write anything at all, I must ask you, tell me in the name of the Lord God, why haven't you written me in all this time so much as a single line? How could have I expected that? Will you believe me that in my isolation and seclusion I succumbed a number of times to a feeling of genuine despair, thinking that you were no longer of this world? And then I worried nights on end about what would happen to your children and damned my fate that made it impossible for me to help them. At other times, when I found out for sure that you were alive, I was gripped by anger, but this occurred during the painful hours, which were quite frequent with me. And I bitterly reproached you, but later that too passed. I forgave you, tried to think up all sorts of excuses for your behavior, and leaning on the best of them, calmed down and never once lost faith in you. I knew you loved me and remembered me with affection. I sent you a letter through the authorities, which you must have received. I waited for your answer, but it never came. Did they really bar you from writing me? But even here it is authorized. All the political inmates receive several letters a year. Durov received several letters, and on the numerous occasions when we asked the penal authorities whether we had the right to receive letters, they said we could. I think I've guessed the real reason for your silence. Slow to move as you are, you wouldn't go around to ask the police authorities, and even if you did go, you contented yourself with the first unfavorable answer, which was perhaps given you by some official who wasn't even too sure of what he was talking about. This depressed me very much, for quite selfish reasons. I thought to myself, if he cannot even manage to do what is necessary to get an authorization to write to me, how can I possibly rely on him to do some really important things for me? Write me an answer to this right away and through official channels without waiting for some special occasion. And write as fully and in as much detail as possible. I feel now like a slice that has been lopped off from the rest of you. I should like to be grafted back on and become part of you all once again. But I cannot. Les absents ont toujours tort. Must that happen between us too, then? But don't worry, I have faith in you. It is now a week since I was released from the hard labor camp. This letter is being sent to you in absolute secrecy, and you mustn't breathe a word about it, but I shall also send you an official letter through the headquarters of the Siberian Army Corps. You must answer my official letter right away and wait for the first opportunity to answer this one. But in your official letter, too, you must give a highly detailed account of the most important things that have happened to you these last 4 years. And for my part, I should be delighted to send you whole volumes, but since I have hardly enough time even for this letter, I shall tell you only about the most important things. What is the most important, and what exactly is it that has been most important to me recently? When you come right down to it, what will probably happen is that I won't tell you a thing about it in this letter. Of course, how can I convey to you what is going on in my head, my idea of things, all I have lived through, the convictions I have gained, and the conclusions I have arrived at during all this time? I am not setting out to do that. Such an effort would be quite unthinkable. I hate doing things halfway, and to tell you just this or that at random would make no sense whatsoever. However, I shall now describe the essentials to you. Read and make out of it whatever you wish. I am obliged to do this, and so I begin my reminiscences. Do you remember how we parted, my dear, my good, my beloved brother? As soon as you left, they led away the three of us, Durov, Dostoyevsky, and me, to shackle us with irons. At 12 o'clock sharp, that is, exactly in the first minute of Christmas, I had shackles put on me for the first time. They weighed 10 pounds or so and made walking extremely uncomfortable. Then they put us into open sleighs, each in a separate one with a guard and so on, 4 sleds, with the state courier in the lead. We left Petersburg. My heart was heavy, and I felt confused and bewildered by a variety of sensations. My heart throbbed, and this made it ache and grieve dully. But the fresh air reinvigorated me, and since one always feels an influx of vitality and energy before every new turn in life, I was in reality very calm and gazed intently at Petersburg as we drove past the houses which were brightly lighted on this festive occasion. And I took leave of each of the houses one by one. We drove past your apartment, and Krajewski's place was all lit up. You had told me that he had a Christmas tree and that the children had gone over there with Amelia Fyodorovna, and I felt a cruel pang of sadness as we passed by the house. It was as though I was saying goodbye to the children. I was terribly sorry for them, and years after that, how many were the times I thought of them almost with tears in my eyes. We were going toward Yaroslavl, and so toward morning. After we had passed 3 or 4 stations, we stopped at daybreak at an inn in Schlusesburg. We pounced on the tea as though we hadn't eaten for a whole week. After 8 months of confinement, we were so starved after a 60-verst winter drive that it is a pleasure to remember it. I felt very cheerful. Durov chatted without let-up, while Yeshtremsky kept conjuring up awful visions of the future. We were all studying and sizing up our escort officer, and he turned out to be a nice, kind old man, as considerate with us as possible to imagine. He had been around and seen things, traveled all over Europe as a courier carrying his messages. During the journey, he rendered us many services. His name was Kuzma Prokofyevich Prokofiev. By the way, he saw to it that we were transferred to covered sleighs, which was very helpful because at times the cold was terrible. The next day, being a holiday, the coachman who drove us wore gray overcoats made of German cloth with crimson belts, and there was not a soul in the streets of the villages we passed through. It was a most marvelous winter day. They took us through deserted areas along the Petersburg, Novgorod, and Yaroslavl roads, etc. The little towns along our way were few, and they were not much as towns go. But since we happened to have set out during the holiday time, there was plenty to eat and to drink everywhere. We were awfully cold. We were dressed warmly, but to sit for about 10 hours on end in a sleigh and cover 5 or 6 relays was just about unbearable. I would get frozen through all the way to my heart, and afterward barely managed to get myself warmed up again in the heated rooms. But a strange thing, during the journey I completely recovered my health. In Perm province, we had to weather a night when it was 40 below. This is an experience I would not recommend to you, quite unpleasant. The crossing of the Urals was a sad moment. The horses in covered sleighs got stuck in the snowdrifts. There was a blizzard, it was night, and we got out and stood around waiting for the men to pull the sleighs free. There was snow all around us, the storm was raging, this was the boundary of Europe, ahead of us was Siberia and our mysterious destiny there. And behind was all our past. I felt sad and broke into tears. Throughout the entire journey, whole villages rushed out to watch us pass, and despite our shackles, we were charged 3 times the normal prices for refreshments at the stations. But Kuzma Prokofyevich took care of about half of our bills himself. He did so despite our protestations, and so we paid out only 15 silver rubles each while on the road. We reached Tobolsk on January 11th. There we were handed over to the authorities, searched, and our money taken away from us. Then Durov, Yeshtremsky, and I were taken to a special cell, while the others, and that included Speshnev and those who had arrived before us, were confined in another section, and so we hardly ever saw them during our stay there. I should like very much to dwell at some length on our 6-day stopover in Tobolsk and on the impression it left on me, but this is not the place for it. I'll only say that from the compassion and deep sympathy we met with there, we derived the reward of nearly complete happiness. The deportees of previous years, or their wives, rather than they themselves, looked after us as though we were part of their families. What magnificent souls, tested by 25 years of hardship and self-sacrifice. We only caught glimpses of them because we were closely guarded, but they passed us food and clothes, consoled us, tried to cheer us up. I had been traveling light and had not even taken my own clothes with me and regretted it. They even sent me some clothes.